"We didn't invite you," my mother said. "Your brother planned this." My father didn't look up from his menu. 50 guests stared, and I stood there in a cream-colored dress holding a single envelope. Inside that envelope was everything my brother had spent 3 years hiding. Every lie he told about me. Every dollar he stole from our parents while pretending to be their savior. And the truth about who actually kept our mother alive when she was dying of cancer. And who took the credit. When my father finally opened that envelope, in front of 50 people, at his own 45th anniversary dinner, he looked at me the way he'd never looked at me in 34 years. And the sound that came out of that man, I'd never heard it before. I don't think he had either. Before I take you back to the beginning, if this story stays with you, I'd be grateful if you'd like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, have you ever given everything to someone who didn't even see you doing it? I want to hear your story. My name is Nora Brennan. I'm 34 years old. Last November, I walked into my parents' 45th anniversary dinner at a Charleston restaurant with an envelope in my hand. Before I could even sit down, my mother looked at me and said, "We didn't invite you. Your brother planned this." My father didn't look up from his menu. But here's what none of them knew. Not my father, not my mother, not my brother sitting at the head of that table like he owned the room. The envelope I was carrying contained a forensic audit of every dollar my brother had stolen from our parents over the past 3 years. I know, because I'm the one who traced them. It's what I do for a living, and it's the thing my family always found the least interesting about me. Let me take you back. 3 years before that dinner, before the envelope, before I understood exactly how much a lie can cost when you let it compound. I grew up in a ranch house on Palmetto Drive in the suburbs outside Charleston, South Carolina. Azalea bushes along the front, screened porch on the side, a driveway that cracked every summer and never got fixed. My father, Walter Brennan, was an electrician. Retired now, hands still rough from 40 years of pulling wire through walls. My mother, Eileen, worked the front desk at a dentist's office until her knees gave out. And my brother, Marcus, 4 years older, was the center of gravity the whole house bent around. I don't say that to be dramatic. I say it because it was physics. Marcus was loud, I was quiet. Marcus told stories at the dinner table. I passed the rolls. Marcus had opinions about everything: politics, football, the neighbor's new fence. And Dad listened to every single one like he was receiving intelligence from the field. I had opinions too. I just learned early that sharing them was like dropping coins into a well. You'd hear the splash, but nobody looked down. There was a system in our house, unspoken but rigid. Marcus's Little League games, the whole family drove 40 minutes each way. Dad filmed from the bleachers. When I won the regional math competition in 7th grade, Dad was on a job site and Mom said, "That's wonderful, honey. Your brother has a game Saturday, so we'll celebrate next week." Next week never came. Marcus graduated high school. Dad rented a tent, hired a DJ, 80 people on the back lawn. I graduated valedictorian. Dad showed up 40 minutes late, still wearing his work boots, and sat in the back row. He clapped when they called my name. I'll give him that. But he clapped the way you clap for someone else's kid. Marcus wanted to buy his first car at 19. Dad handed him $8,000 for the down payment. Didn't blink. When I needed braces at 15, Mom sat me down at the kitchen table and said, "We can't afford extras right now, Nora." My teeth weren't extras, but Marcus's car was essential. Marcus got divorced the first time at 26. Dad paid the lawyer, $12,000. I asked once, years later, if they'd help with my student loans, $38,000 from accounting school. Dad said, "You should learn to stand on your own 2 feet." I already was. I'd been standing on them since I was old enough to notice nobody was holding me up. Thanksgivings were the worst. Not because of the food. Mom made a beautiful turkey. but because of the table. Marcus would start talking about whatever he was selling that year, insurance mostly, and the whole room leaned in. Cousins, uncles, neighbors who came for dessert. One year, I'd just finished a case, helped uncover a $2.1 million fraud scheme at a manufacturing company. My first major investigation. I was proud. I mentioned it between the cranberry sauce and the pie. Dad took a sip of his beer and said, "That's nice, honey. Marcus, tell them about the boat." I read spreadsheets the way other people read novels. I can find a lie hiding inside 10,000 transactions the way a surgeon finds a tumor. My grandmother, Dorothy, Mom's mother, 78 years old and sharper than anyone at that table. She used to say, "The numbers never lie, baby. People do." She was the only one who ever asked about my work. The only one who said my name like it meant something. After college, I moved to Charlotte, 200 miles north, far enough to breathe, close enough to drive back when guilt got loud. I got a job at Beacon Analytics, worked my way up from junior auditor to senior forensic accountant in 6 years. I was good at my work. Not good the way Marcus was good at talking. Good the way foundations are good. Invisible until you need them. I called home every Sunday. Mom picked up sometimes. Dad never did. Marcus didn't call me at all unless he needed something. Usually information, like the number for a tax guy or how to read a 1099. He never said thank you. He just said, "Cool. Gotta go." And every time I hung up, I told myself the same thing. They love you, Nora. They just don't know how to show it. That sentence was the load-bearing wall of my entire emotional architecture. I leaned on it for years. I didn't know yet that someone was quietly dismantling the foundation underneath. I had a voicemail on my phone I used to listen to. I won't tell you what it said yet. Just know that it was 47 seconds long, and some nights it was the only voice from home that felt like it meant what it said. Then one night, a Tuesday, 11:47 p.m., I was still at my desk reviewing an audit report. My phone buzzed. Marcus. He almost never called and never this late. I picked up. "Hey," he said, casual, like he was ordering takeout. "So, Mom has cancer. Stage 3. Ovarian. They caught it late." He paused. I could hear a TV in the background. "You should probably know." 3 sentences. No emotion. No, "How are you?" No, "I'm scared." Just information delivered like a weather report about someone else's city. I sat in my office chair for a long time after he hung up. The building was empty. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me. I stared at the audit report on my screen. Numbers, columns, patterns. And none of it mattered anymore. Stage 3. Those 2 words rearranged everything. My budget, my sleep, my definition of what mattered. But what Marcus said next rearranged something else entirely. "Don't worry about the bills, Nora. I've got it handled." He didn't. And I would spend the next 3 years learning exactly how much that lie cost. The first hospital bill arrived on a Tuesday. $14,200 for the initial round of chemo. I know because I'm the one who paid it. I just wasn't the one who got thanked. Here's how it worked. The morning after Marcus called, I picked up the phone and dialed the billing department at Crestview Medical Center in Charleston. Spoke to a woman named Linda who sounded like she'd explained insurance copays 10,000 times and was ready for 10,000 more. I gave her my bank account and routing number, set up a direct monthly payment, and then I said the sentence that would define the next 3 years of my life. "Please don't tell my family the payments are coming from me." Linda paused. "Ma'am, are you sure? My family is complicated." She didn't ask again. $4,200 a month. That's what Mom's treatment cost after insurance. Chemo, oncologist visits, lab work, the anti-nausea medication that cost more than my car payment. I sat at my kitchen table in Charlotte with a calculator and a checking account that suddenly looked a lot smaller. Rent, $1,350. Student loans, $487. Car insurance, groceries, electricity. After the hospital payment, I had about $190 left for everything else. So I made choices. Sold my Subaru, bought a 2011 Honda Civic with 94,000 miles. Canceled HBO Max, Spotify, the gym membership I actually used. Stopped eating out. Stopped buying coffee on the way to work. Brewed Folgers at home. Poured it into a thermos that leaked from the lid if I tilted it wrong. Bought clothes at Goodwill. Not because I'm noble. Because $4,200 a month doesn't leave room for pride, and every single month, without fail, the payment cleared. Linda from billing never broke her promise, and I never told a soul, except one person. But I'll get to her. Meanwhile, my brother found God, or at least, God's audience. Grandma Dorothy called me on a Sunday evening, 3 months into the payments. Her voice had that edge. The one she gets when she's chewing on something bitter and deciding whether to spit it out. "Your brother was at Grace Community this morning," she said. "Stood up during prayer requests, asked the whole congregation to pray for your mother. Then he said," and I'm quoting, "I'm covering all the medical expenses myself. It's what family does." I held the phone so tight the case creaked. Pastor Reynolds shook his hand afterwards, patted him on the back like he was giving him a medal, and Jenna sat in the front pew nodding like she was watching her husband accept a Nobel Prize. "Dorothy, I'm not finished." He posted about it. Facebook. A picture of him holding your mother's hand at the hospital. Caption: "No one fights alone, not on my watch." She paused. 847 likes, Nora. I counted. I saw the post that night. 2 a.m. I was still up after an overtime shift, eating peanut butter from the jar because I'd forgotten to buy bread. There was Marcus in the photo, leaning over Mom's hospital bed, that golden retriever smile, Jenna standing behind him with her hand on his shoulder like a campaign ad. The comments were a choir. "What an amazing son! Eileen is so blessed. Marcus, you're a real man. God bless your family." I closed the app, opened my banking app instead, scrolled through the transaction history. 14 payments, $58,800. All from my account. And not a single person in that comment section, not one, knew my name. I saved every receipt, screenshotted every confirmation email, uploaded them to a cloud folder, emailed copies to myself, backed up the folder on a USB I kept in my nightstand. Force of habit. In my line of work, you learn that the difference between a hunch and a conviction is documentation, but I wasn't building a case yet. I was just a woman paying her mother's hospital bills and watching her brother take a bow. Then Jenna made her move. I heard about it from Dorothy again. The woman was my only window into what was actually happening back in Charleston. Marcus and Jenna had gone to see Dad. Dinner at the house, casual, steaks on the grill. And somewhere between the potato salad and the sweet tea, Jenna brought up power of attorney. "Just to simplify things," she told Walter. "So Marcus can handle the medical paperwork, the insurance claims, all the logistics. You shouldn't have to worry about that stuff while Eileen's in treatment." Dad signed it the next day. Didn't tell me, didn't ask me, didn't even mention it until I called the following week to ask about Mom's latest scan. "Your brother handles the medical stuff now," Dad said. "That's how it works." "Dad, I'm a forensic account." "Marcus is here, Nora. You're in Charlotte doing whatever it is you do with spreadsheets." Whatever it is you do with spreadsheets. I let that sentence sit in my chest like a stone. The man had just handed legal authority over my mother's medical decisions to the son who'd never paid a single bill, while his daughter, the one actually keeping the lights on at that hospital, was reduced to spreadsheets. If you're wondering whether I told him, Whether I said, "Dad, I'm the one paying," every month, every dollar. I didn't. Because I knew exactly what would happen. Marcus would deny it. Dad would believe Marcus. And I'd become the difficult daughter making accusations during her mother's cancer treatment. I'd watched that playbook run on other families 100 times in my career. I wasn't going to let it run on mine. Not yet. But something shifted that night. Not a decision. More like a crack in the wall I'd been holding up. The wall that said, as long as Mom is okay, it doesn't matter who gets the credit. It mattered. I just wasn't ready to admit it. That night, my phone buzzed. A voicemail from Mom's number, left at 3:12 in the afternoon. I almost deleted it, thinking it was Marcus using her phone. But something made me press play. 47 seconds. Mom's voice, thin and tired from chemo. Slow, like each word cost her something. "Nora, sweetheart, I tried calling, but Marcus said you were busy. I wish you were here. I miss you, baby." A pause. The beep of a heart monitor in the background. Then nothing. She didn't know I'd been paying for every drop of medicine keeping her alive. She didn't know I called the billing department every month to make sure nothing lapsed. She didn't know that the reason I hadn't visited wasn't distance. It was that every spare dollar I had went to her treatment instead of a plane ticket. And Marcus had made sure she never would. I saved the voicemail. I've listened to it more times than I can count. 47 seconds. Some nights it was a prayer. Some nights it was a knife. Most nights it was both. If you've ever loved someone who didn't know you were the one holding them up, if you've ever watched someone else take credit for the weight you were carrying, then you already know what I felt sitting on my kitchen floor at midnight, phone pressed against my chest, the taste of peanut butter still on my tongue, and $71,400 gone from my account. You know, and I'm sorry that you do. What would you have done? Would you have told them the truth? Right then? Even if it meant your brother would twist it into something ugly? Or would you have kept quiet and kept paying? Tell me in the comments. I really want to know. Because I kept quiet. For 2 more years. And the silence cost me more than the money ever did. There's a moment every forensic accountant knows. You're looking at a ledger, and something shifts. A number that's too round. A date that doesn't match. A pattern that shouldn't exist. Your stomach drops before your brain catches up. That's what happened when I opened the county property records and saw my brother's name on my parents' deed. It was a Wednesday night, 11-something. I wasn't even looking for it. I'd been reviewing Mom's billing statements, monthly ritual, making sure nothing lapsed, no surprise charges, no coverage gaps. Everything checked out. But I had the Charleston County Clerk's website open in another tab from a work project earlier that day, and I don't know what made me do it. Habit, maybe. Instinct. The same reflex that makes me check a company's property filings when their balance sheet looks too clean. I typed in the address, 1427 Palmetto Drive, Charleston, SC. Owner, Walter J. Brennan, Eileen R. Brennan, and Marcus T. Brennan, Jenna L. Brennan, quitclaim deed, filed 14 months ago with the Charleston County Register of Deeds. I read it 3 times, then a 4th. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from recognition. I'd spent my entire career finding exactly this kind of thing in other people's families. I just never expected to find it in mine. A quitclaim deed is the fastest, quietest way to transfer property interest. No title search required, no warranty, just a signature and a notary. It's the tool of choice for estate planners, divorcing couples, and people who want to get their name on a house before anyone notices. 14 months ago. That meant Marcus had done this 3 months after getting power of attorney. 3 months after Dad said, "Your brother handles things now." I closed the laptop, opened it, closed it again, walked to the kitchen, Poured a glass of water I didn't drink. Came back. Opened the laptop. The record was still there. It wasn't going anywhere. I called Dorothy the next morning at 7. She picked up on the first ring, which meant she was already awake and angry about something. At 78, Dorothy ran on 2 fuels, Chick-fil-A and indignation. "I've been waiting for you to find it, baby." I almost dropped my coffee. "You knew." I didn't know the details, but I knew something stank. She told me, 14 months ago, Marcus drove Walter to a notary office on King Street. Told Dad it was routine paperwork to update the house title for estate planning purposes. Walter signed without reading. Dorothy heard about it from Patsy Crane, their neighbor of 30 years, who saw Marcus and Walter coming out of the notary and thought it was odd enough to mention at church. "Your grandfather bought that house in 1978, Dorothy said. Her voice had changed, harder, older, the voice of a woman defending something sacred. "Paid $34,000, cash. Worked double shifts at the shipyard for 6 years to save it. Built the porch with his own hands. That house is Brennan, Nora. Not Marcus's piggy bank." "Grandma, did you tell anyone?" "Who was I going to tell? Your father thinks Marcus walks on water. Your mother's fighting cancer. And you were 200 miles away paying bills nobody knew about." She paused. "But I wrote it down. Date, time, what Patsy told me. It's in my nightstand. I'm old, Nora. Not stupid. I sat with that for a long time. Then I did something I knew was a test. I called Marcus. Kept my voice light. Casual. The voice of a sister who doesn't suspect anything. "Hey, how's Mom doing? I was thinking about helping with some of the paperwork. Maybe taking a few things off your plate." He cut me off. "Everything's handled, Nora. You don't need to worry about the house stuff." I paused. Let a beat pass. I didn't mention the house. Silence. 4 seconds. I counted. I meant the bills. The house. The bills. Whatever. It's all taken care of. Click. I sat at my kitchen table and wrote in my notebook. The spiral-bound one I use for case notes. He knew I was asking about the deed before I said the word deed. Defensive response. Unprompted specificity. Classic indicator of concealment. I was writing about my brother the way I write about fraud suspects. And the worst part was, the analysis fit. That night, I opened a new folder on my laptop. Named it Brennan. Created a spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, transaction. Column C, source. Column D, amount. Column E, notes. 4 rows to start. The quitclaim deed. The POA. The 14 months of medical bills I'd paid. The Facebook post where Marcus claimed credit. It wasn't much. But I've built federal cases from less. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was upset. I was past upset. I was in the zone I enter when I'm 2 weeks into an audit and the pattern starts revealing itself. That cold, clean focus where emotion steps aside and the numbers take over. My boss at Beacon always said I could find a nickel in a hurricane. He wasn't wrong. He just never imagined I'd be looking for it in my own family. The next morning, 7:02 a.m., my phone rang. A number I recognized. Sophie Chen, my cousin on Mom's side. 29, worked as a customer service rep at Coastal Heritage Bank in Charleston. We weren't close, but we'd always been friendly. Christmas cards, the occasional text about Grandma Dorothy's health. She was whispering, like someone might hear her through the walls of her own apartment. "Nora, I need to tell you something. I probably shouldn't, but I can't not." "What is it?" "I work at Coastal Heritage. Your brother opened a home equity line of credit on your parents' house 3 months ago." The room tilted. Not literally, but something inside me shifted on its axis. "How much?" $180,000. And Nora, he's already drawn $62,000. I set my coffee down, very slowly. The way you set things down when your hands need something to do besides shake. Sophie, I need you to tell me everything, and I need you to not tell anyone we had this conversation. I could lose my job. I know. And I promise you, no one will ever know. What you're doing isn't breaking a rule. It's stopping a crime. She told me everything she'd seen. The HELOC application, Marcus and Jenna's signatures, the draw schedule, the amounts. I wrote it all down in the spiral notebook, pressing hard enough that the pen left grooves on the next page. The spreadsheet on my screen had 4 rows when Sophie called. By the end of that phone call, it had 47. I hung up, sat in my kitchen in the early morning light. Charlotte was waking up outside. A dog barking, a car starting, the ordinary machinery of a Tuesday that didn't know my family was falling apart. I looked at the spreadsheet. 47 rows. 14 months of quitclaim fraud. 3 months of HELOC draws. 3 years of stolen credit for medical bills I was still paying. And somewhere in the back of my mind, Dorothy's voice. The numbers never lie, baby. People do. She was right. The numbers were screaming. And I was finally listening. I need to tell you about 3 people. A 78-year-old woman who kept secrets like a vault. A lawyer who specialized in the kind of evil most people don't believe exists in families. And a cousin who risked her career for a phone call she didn't have to make. The first thing I did after Sophie's call was search Google for 5 words. Elder Financial Abuse Attorney, South Carolina. Rachel Whitfield's name came up third. Solo practice. Downtown Charlotte, 4th floor office with glass desk and framed verdicts on the wall. I called at 8 a.m. She had an opening at noon. I brought the spiral notebook, the spreadsheet printout, every receipt from 3 years of hospital payments. Rachel sat across from me and listened for 20 minutes without interrupting, which, if you've ever hired a lawyer, you know is either a very good sign or a very expensive one. When I finished, she leaned back. Your brother committed at least 3 prosecutable offenses in what you've just told me. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. But emotion doesn't win cases, Nora. Evidence does. How good are you at building a paper trail? It's literally my job. She almost smiled. Almost. Good, because this is going to take patience. We need documentation for every claim, the medical payments, the quitclaim deed, the HELOC draws, the POA, and we need to establish a pattern of intent, not just opportunity. She tapped her pen on the desk. In South Carolina, elder financial abuse carries up to 10 years. 10 years. I let that number land. How long do I have? As long as you need. But the longer your brother has access, the more damage he does. So, thorough, but not slow. I nodded. She handed me her card. Call me when you have the binders ready. And Nora, don't confront him. Don't hint. Don't give him a reason to cover his tracks. Right now, he thinks you're the boring sister with the spreadsheets. Let him. That weekend, I drove to Charleston to see Dorothy. Magnolia Gardens Assisted Living. A single room with floral curtains, a wall of family photos, and a shoebox under the bed that turned out to hold more history than the county clerk's office. Dorothy was waiting for me in her armchair, dressed like she was going to church even though it was Saturday. She pointed at the shoebox before I'd even sat down. Bottom shelf, behind the slippers. I pulled it out. Inside, the original deed from 1978, yellowed at the edges, Grandpa Harold's signature in blue ink. Careful, deliberate, the handwriting of a man who knew what he was signing and what it cost him. Behind it, a handwritten note in Dorothy's shaky cursive, dated 14 months ago. March 7th. Marcus took Walter to Notary on King Street. Patsy Crane saw them. Something wrong. You wrote this down the day it happened? I told you, I'm old, not stupid. I photographed every page, front and back. uploaded them to the cloud folder, emailed copies to myself, put the originals back in the shoebox. Then I sat on the edge of her bed and held her hand. "Grandma, this is going to get ugly." "Baby, it's been ugly. You're just finally turning on the lights." She squeezed my hand, then let go and pointed at the door. "Now go to Chick-fil-A and bring me a #1 with extra pickles. Don't tell the nurses. They keep trying to feed me quinoa." She shook her head. "Quinoa, Nora, at my age." I laughed. First real laugh in weeks. Back in Charlotte, I built the binder system. 4 binders, color-coded. Blue, medical payments. Every receipt, every confirmation, every bank statement showing the $4,200 monthly transfer. Red, property records. The original 1978 deed, the quitclaim, county filings. Yellow, HELOC documents, Sophie's information, draw schedules, amounts. Green, timeline, every event in chronological order, cross-referenced. I photographed every page. Cloud backup, email backup, USB backup. Bought a fireproof safe from Home Depot for $89 and put the originals inside. Set it in the back of my closet behind a box of winter clothes. Ethan Cole, my coworker at Beacon, noticed I was running on fumes. He was the kind of guy who showed up with coffee when you looked like you needed it and didn't ask why. Monday morning, he set a cup on my desk and said, "You look like you're auditing the IRS. Or planning a heist." Little of both. He didn't push. I appreciated that more than the coffee. Every night after work, I sat at my kitchen table cross-referencing documents. The HELOC draws told a story all by themselves. $62,000 pulled in 3 months. But where did it go? Sophie had given me the withdrawal dates. I matched them against what I could find in public records and Marcus's social media. The pattern emerged the way patterns always do. Slowly, then all at once. And then I found it. A business entity filing with the South Carolina Secretary of State. Brennan Legacy Holdings, LLC, filed 8 months ago. Registered agent Jenna L. Brennan. My sister-in-law had created a shell company using my family's name. I pulled the bank records Sophie had flagged, a wire transfer from my parents' retirement account. Not the HELOC, a separate account entirely, their 401k rollover, the savings they'd spent 40 years building, $94,000, wired into Brennan Legacy Holdings. I called Rachel. She picked up on the second ring. "How fast can you get me in front of a judge?" She paused. "That depends. How much evidence do you have?" I looked at my desk. 4 binders, 6 USB drives, a fireproof safe in my closet, 3 years of receipts and 6 months of forensic work staring back at me in 4 colors. "Enough," I said. "I have enough." Here's something they don't teach you in forensic accounting school. When you investigate strangers, it's clinical. When you investigate your own family, every fraudulent transaction feels like a knife between your ribs. I found 23 of them. After the LLC discovery, I stopped sleeping in any real sense. I'd lie down at midnight, stare at the ceiling until 1, then get up and sit at the kitchen table with my laptop and the binders. The HELOC draws were the thread I pulled first. $62,000 withdrawn in 3 months, and I needed to know where every dollar landed. Sophie met me at a coffee shop off Independence Boulevard on a Saturday morning. Back corner booth, baseball cap pulled low, hands wrapped around a latte she wasn't drinking. She slid a manila folder across the table. Monthly statements from the HELOC account, draw dates, amounts, and destination accounts. I opened the folder, ran my finger down the columns the way I do at work. Fast, clinical, looking for the shape of the money before I read the details. The shape was ugly. $18,400. Wire transfer to Lake Country Marine. I searched the name on my phone. Boat dealership in Somerville. Deposit on a 24-foot deck boat. Marcus's lake house dream, funded by our parents' home equity. $22,000, cashier's check to Hendrick Automotive. Down payment on a 2023 Range Rover Velar, registered to Jenna L. Brennan, $8,600. Transferred to a contractor named Palmetto Renovations. But when I checked the house on Google Street View, the same cracked driveway, same faded siding, no renovation. The money vanished into whatever Palmetto Renovations actually was, if it existed at all. $13,000. Cash withdrawals across 7 ATM visits in 6 weeks. Untraceable by design. I wrote each line in the spreadsheet. Column A through E. Date, transaction, source, amount, notes. The notes column was getting longer. The amounts were getting harder to look at. Sophie watched me from across the table. Her latte had gone cold. "There's more," she said. "The joint checking account. Your parents." She pulled out a second sheet. 18 months of statements. 23 withdrawals. Small, deliberate. $200 here, $350 there, $475 on a Tuesday in March. The kind of amounts that don't trigger alerts, don't show up on monthly reviews, don't catch anyone's attention unless you're the kind of person who reads bank statements for a living. $6,847 total. He'd been skimming from their grocery money. Sophie's hands were shaking when she took the papers back. "If anyone finds out I did this, I lose my job, Nora." "No one will know. And Sophie, what you're doing isn't breaking a rule. It's stopping a crime." She nodded, eyes wet. Then she put the baseball cap back on and left through the side door. I sat in that booth for another hour, ordered a second coffee I didn't touch, mapped the full picture on a napkin, because sometimes the old ways work best. Medical bills Nora paid. $151,200. HELOC drawn. $62,000. Retirement fund diverted to LLC. $94,000. Checking account skimmed. $6,847. Total. $314,047 in documented financial harm. Money stolen, misappropriated, or claimed under false pretenses. And that was before I factored in what the LLC actually bought. I already knew about the Somerville land from the Secretary of State filings, but now I had the price. $94,000, the exact amount of the retirement fund transfer. Marcus and Jenna had used our parents' life savings to buy an investment property under a shell company that bore our family name but belonged only to them. I brought everything to Rachel on a Thursday afternoon. She cleared her desk, put on her reading glasses, and went through each binder tab by tab. 40 minutes of silence except for the sound of pages turning and Rachel's pen scratching notes in the margins. When she finished, she took off her glasses and looked at me. "This is solid. HELOC abuse, retirement fund diversion through a shell LLC, systematic withdrawals from their checking. A PS will investigate. The DA will be interested." She leaned forward. "But you said the anniversary party is in 6 weeks. 50 people. Your entire family." "Yes. Are you thinking what I think you're thinking? My brother built his reputation on my money. I'd like to return the favor in front of everyone who believed him." Rachel studied me for a long time. Not judging, calculating, the way I calculate risk assessments. "That's a strategy, a risky one. But I understand why." She paused. "Just promise me one thing. Let me be in the room." "Wouldn't have it any other way." She nodded. Then she pulled out a legal pad and started drafting. A PS complaint, DA referral, civil lawsuit. All ready to file the morning after the party. I spent the next 2 weeks assembling the envelope. Cream-colored, heavy stock. Inside, a 1-page letter in my handwriting. I won't tell you what it said yet. A forensic audit summary, 12 pages, every transaction documented, cross-referenced, and sourced, and a USB drive containing the complete digital archive. 4 binders compressed into one small device. Then Marcus called. First time in 4 months. His voice was warm, almost brotherly. The voice he uses when he wants something or when he's performing for an audience. And with Marcus, those are usually the same thing. Hey Nora, so Jenna and I are planning Mom and Dad's 45th anniversary. Family dinner at Magnolia's. Nothing crazy. You should come. I held the phone away from my face so he wouldn't hear me smile. I wouldn't miss it, I said. I'll even bring a gift. 4 weeks before the anniversary dinner, my brother did something I didn't see coming. He called my mother's oncologist and had me removed from her medical contact list. When I called the hospital to check on her latest scan results, the receptionist said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. You're not authorized to receive that information." Marcus had fired the first shot. He just didn't know I'd already built the cannon. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone still warm against my ear. The receptionist was apologetic. She could hear it in my silence. "The patient's power of attorney holder submitted the change 3 days ago," she said. "I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do from my end." 3 days ago. Which meant Marcus had been planning this while he was on the phone inviting me to the anniversary dinner. The warmth in his voice, the "you should come," it was a performance. And while he was performing, he was quietly locking me out of my mother's medical records, the records I was still paying for. $4,200 a month. Every month. And I couldn't even ask if her scans were clear. I called Dorothy. She already knew. "Jenna made the call," Dorothy said. "Used Marcus's POA paperwork. But Nora, that's not all." It never was. Dorothy told me what happened at Grace Community Church the previous Sunday. Marcus had requested a private meeting with Pastor Reynolds after service, sat in the pastor's office for 40 minutes. When he came out, he shook the pastor's hand and Jenna was waiting in the parking lot with the engine running. What he told Pastor Reynolds traveled through the congregation the way things do in Charleston, quietly, efficiently, with just enough concern to disguise the cruelty. Marcus said I'd been struggling with some mental health issues, that I'd been making accusations against family members, that he was worried about his sister, but didn't know how to help because I refused to listen to reason. Concern trolling. The most sophisticated form of character assassination there is, because you can't fight it without looking exactly as unhinged as they've described you. Pastor Reynolds called Walter, expressed his concern. Walter told Eileen, and Eileen, 64 years old, mid-chemo, exhausted in her bones, cried. Not because she believed it, because the idea that her daughter might be suffering and she couldn't help was more than she could carry on top of everything else. Marcus drove to the house that evening. Dorothy heard this from Patsy Crane next door, who saw his truck in the driveway. He sat with Mom in the living room, held her hand, and said, "I'm just trying to protect you from the stress, Mom. Nora's not thinking clearly right now." Protect. That word again. The word he used when he took power of attorney. The word Jenna used when she suggested managing the finances. Protect. The favorite verb of people who are building a cage. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to Charleston, walk into that house, and lay every receipt on the kitchen table. But Rachel's voice was in my head. Don't confront him, don't hint. Right now he thinks you're the boring sister. Let him. So I swallowed it. All of it. The metallic taste of injustice that doesn't have anywhere to go. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked the HELOC. Force of habit. I'd been monitoring the account weekly through the records Sophie provided. What I saw made my chest tighten. In the past 30 days, Marcus had drawn an additional $43,000. The withdrawal pattern had changed. Before, it was strategic. Large, deliberate amounts spaced weeks apart. Now it was erratic. 3 draws in 1 week. $15,000, then $12,000, then $16,000. Panic spending. The kind of acceleration I'd seen a dozen times in fraud cases, always in the final phase when the subject senses the walls closing in. Total HELOC used $105,000 out of $180,000. I called Rachel. He's burning through the money faster. He's scared. Scared of what? Me. He doesn't know what I have, but he knows I asked about the deed. He knows I'm paying attention. So he's grabbing everything he can before the door shuts. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Scared people accelerate. That's good for us and bad for your parents. How much equity is left in the house? I'd already calculated it. At this rate, he drains the full HELOC in 5 months. Then the house goes underwater. The house my grandfather built. Then we don't have 6 weeks. We have a deadline. That night, I sat in my car in the apartment parking lot. Engine off. Windows up. The kind of dark that only exists at 1 a.m. on a weeknight in a city that's already gone to sleep. I played Mom's voicemail, 47 seconds. Her voice asking for me while her own son was erasing me from her records. I wish you were here, sweetheart. And for the first time, I spoke back. Out loud, to no one in the dark. I'm coming, Mom. I just need him to think I'm not. The next morning, 7:14 a.m., a text from a number I didn't recognize. Hi, this is Dave Myers. I did IT work for your brother's office last month. I saw something on his computer I think you should know about. It's about a property in Somerville and an insurance policy. I don't want trouble, but I couldn't sleep. I read it 3 times. The screen blurred the 3rd time because my hands were trembling. Not from fear. From the feeling you get when the last piece of a puzzle slides into place and the picture is worse than you imagined. I called Rachel. We just got our intent, I said. Dave Myers was a 53-year-old IT contractor who fixed printers and set up email servers for small businesses in the Charleston area. He charged $80 an hour. He had no stake in my family's drama, and he was about to hand me the last piece of a puzzle I'd been building for 6 months. We met at a coffee shop outside Charlotte. My suggestion, neutral ground, nowhere near Charleston. Dave showed up in a Carhartt jacket and work boots, looking like a man who'd rather be anywhere else. He ordered black coffee, didn't touch it, and slid a folder across the table. Last month, I did a system migration for your brother's office. New email server, file backup, the usual. While I was transferring his desktop files, a browser tab was open. 2 tabs, actually. He opened the folder. Inside, 2 screenshots, printed, time-stamped. The first was a life insurance application, Pacific Mutual. Policy amount, $500,000. Insured, Walter J. Brennan, age 67. Beneficiary, Marcus T. Brennan. Application date, 6 weeks ago. The second was an email thread between Marcus and Jenna. Subject line, Somerville lot closing date. The body discussed timeline, title transfer, and a reference to Dad's account as the funding source. I looked at the screenshots for a long time. The coffee shop noise faded. The espresso machine, someone's laptop keyboard, a child laughing by the window. All of it gone. Just me and 2 pieces of paper that turned a financial fraud case into something darker. I'm not a lawyer, Dave said. I don't know what's legal and what's not. But a man taking out a $500,000 policy on his father while draining his retirement fund, that didn't sit right with me. It doesn't sit right with anyone, Dave. That's why it's a crime. He nodded, pushed the folder closer. I figured you'd need these. They're the originals, printed straight from his screen, date and time in the corner. Why are you helping me? He looked at his coffee, picked it up, set it back down. I've got a daughter, 26, lives in Raleigh. If someone did this to me, I'd want her to know. I thanked him. He stood up, put his jacket back on, and paused. I don't want to be involved in whatever comes next, but I'll sign an affidavit if it gets that far. Then he walked out. $80 an hour and a conscience. Sometimes that's enough. Rachel's office. That afternoon. She spread everything across her glass desk. 4 binders, Sophie's bank records, Dorothy's shoebox documents, and now Dave's screenshots. The full picture. She put on her reading glasses and built the case out loud, ticking each item like a surgeon counting instruments before closing. HELOC abuse. $105,000 drawn against your parents' home equity without informed consent. Retirement fund diversion. $94,000 through a Shell LLC to purchase property in Somerville. Systematic checking account withdrawals. $6,847 over 18 months. Medical bills. $151,200. That your medical bills. $151,200. That your brother claimed credit for while you paid every cent. She set her glasses on the desk. Total documented financial harm, approximately $206,000 in diverted assets, plus the insurance fraud, plus the medical credit theft. This is one of the cleaner elder abuse cases I've seen, Nora, and I've seen a lot. Clean. That's not the word I'd use. Legally clean. Emotionally, I imagine it's a nightmare. It was. But nightmares end when you wake up. And I was wide awake. We mapped the strategy. I attend the anniversary dinner. Deliver the envelope. Letter. Forensic audit summary. USB drive. Rachel attends as my +1. Sits quietly until needed. The morning after, she files everything. A PS complaint. DA referral for criminal investigation. Civil lawsuit on behalf of Walter and Eileen Brennan against Marcus and Jenna Brennan. Your brother won't know what hit him, Rachel said. But more importantly, he won't have time to destroy evidence. By the time he wakes up the next morning, every agency that matters will have a copy of your binders. And the HELOC? Emergency motion to freeze. I'll have it drafted before the party. I drove to see Dorothy that Saturday. Brought Chick-fil-A. #1, extra pickles. She ate it slowly, watching me with those eyes that miss nothing. You scared? She asked. Terrified. Good. Brave people are always terrified. Cowards are the ones who feel nothing. She reached under her pillow and pulled out a photograph. Black and white, creased at one corner. Grandpa Harold standing on the porch of 1427 Palmetto Drive the day he closed on the house, 1978. Young, proud, tool belt still on. One hand on the railing he'd built himself. Take this with you tomorrow night. Not for them. For you. So you remember what you're protecting. I put it in my jacket pocket, right next to the envelope. At the door, she grabbed my wrist. Her grip was stronger than it should have been at 78. Your grandfather worked double shifts for 6 years to buy that house. Your brother's not going to take it while I'm still breathing. She let go. Now go, and don't you dare lose. I drove south on Horn 77 that evening. Charlotte to Charleston, 3.5 hours. Envelope on the passenger seat. Grandpa Harold in my left pocket. Phone buzzed once. Sophie. Be careful. And be brave. I didn't reply. Just drove. Radio off. Windows cracked. November air. Sharp and cool. The kind that keeps you alert when your body wants to shut down. I checked into a hotel off King Street at 11:14 p.m. Set my alarm for 6. Hung the cream-colored dress on the bathroom door. Placed the envelope on the nightstand next to my phone. Then I played Mom's voicemail one last time. 47 seconds. I wish you were here, sweetheart. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow you'll know I never left. The restaurant was called Magnolia's. White tablecloths, candles, a private dining room Marcus had reserved for 50 guests. He'd even ordered a custom cake with gold lettering, Walter and Eileen, 45 years of love. I walked in at 6:47 p.m., wearing a cream-colored dress and carrying a single envelope. My brother saw me from across the room. His smile didn't waver, but his left hand, the one holding the champagne glass, went very, very still. Heads turned. Murmurs rippled outward like a stone dropped in water. I hadn't been in the same room as most of these people in over 2 years. Uncle Phil by the bread baskets, Cousin Bobby near the window, Mrs. Calloway from church, her reading glasses perched on her nose. Patsy Crane, Dorothy's neighbor who saw Marcus at the notary 14 months ago and told the one person who cared. Marcus crossed the room. Jenna followed 2 steps behind, heels clicking on the hardwood. He put his hand on my shoulder, firm, performative, and said loudly enough for the room, "Nora, so glad you could make it." Then he leaned in. Whisper. "What's in the envelope?" "A gift." "I swear to God, Nora, if you make a scene." "I'm just here for dinner, Marcus." He stared. 4 seconds. Then the smile came back. The one he wore to church, to client meetings, to every room where people needed to believe he was a good man. He stepped aside. I walked to my parents' table. Mom saw me first. Her hair was growing back, thin, silver, curling at the edges. She reached for my hand. "Baby." One word, and her eyes were already full. Dad looked up, jaw set, arms folded across his Sunday shirt. "We didn't invite you. Your brother planned this." 50 people heard it. I felt every pair of eyes land on me at once. "I know," I said. "I came anyway. I'd like you to open this. Both of you. That's all I came to do." I set the envelope on the table between the flower arrangement and the gold cake. Marcus was already moving. "Dad, you don't need to open that. She's been going through something." I told Pastor Reynolds. "Open the envelope, Dad." "She's been making wild accusations, calling the bank, bothering people." A voice from the corner. Calm, clear. The kind of voice that fills a room without raising its volume. "Mr. Brennan, I'd recommend you open it." Rachel Whitfield stood from her chair near the back wall. She'd been sitting quietly through the toast, the appetizers, the slideshow of family photos where my face appeared exactly twice. "I'm Ms. Whitfield. I represent your daughter in a matter of elder financial abuse. The contents of that envelope are a courtesy. What gets filed tomorrow morning will not be." Dead silence, the kind that has weight. Marcus turned. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone your sister hired because you gave her no other choice." Dad's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. The letter first. 1 page, my handwriting. I watched his eyes move across it. Then the forensic audit summary. 12 pages. Every transaction I'd traced over 6 months, cross-referenced and sourced. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I stood at that table and spoke the way I speak in depositions, measured, factual, and absolutely certain. For 3 years, I paid Mom's cancer treatment. Every bill. $4,200 a month. $151,200 total. Anonymous. Because I didn't need credit. I needed her alive. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Marcus opened his... I kept going. 14 months ago, you added your name to this house's deed using a quitclaim. Then you opened a $180,000 home equity line of credit against the house Grandpa Harold built in 1978. You've drawn $105,000 so far. $18,400 went to a boat deposit. $22,000 went to Jenna's Range Rover. Jenna stood up. Marcus grabbed her arm. "Sit down." Last year, $94,000 was transferred from Mom and Dad's retirement account into a shell company called Brennan Legacy Holdings. The LLC is registered to Jenna. The money bought land in Somerville. Dad looked at Marcus. The color left his face in stages. Forehead first, then cheeks, then lips. Like watching a man realize the ground he's standing on belongs to someone else. 2 months ago, you applied for a $500,000 life insurance policy on Dad, listed yourself as sole beneficiary. Dad didn't sign that application, which means someone forged his signature. A wine glass hit the tablecloth somewhere to my left. No one picked it up. And for 18 months, 23 withdrawals from Mom and Dad's checking account. $200 here, $400 there, $6,847 total. You hoped no one would notice. I looked at him. My brother, the golden child, the one who got the DJ and the down payment and the standing ovation at church. He was standing 3 feet away, and for the first time in my life, he looked small. You called me the boring one, Marcus. Turns out boring keeps receipts. His face cracked. Not dramatically. Not a movie villain's snarl or a soap opera gasp. Just a slow, mechanical failure of the mask he'd worn for 38 years. His mouth moved, but the calibration was off. Words came out in the wrong order, at the wrong volume. I was going to pay it back. It was an investment. Dad, you have to. I was here. I was the one who... No one responded. Jenna pulled her arm free, grabbed her purse, and walked toward the back door. Her heels were the only sound in the room. Marcus called after her. Jenna, don't... The door closed. She didn't look back. 11 seconds of silence. I counted them the way I count everything. The candles flickered. Someone's phone buzzed and was silenced instantly. The gold cake sat untouched, its lettering catching the light. 45 years of love, while the room absorbed the shape of what that love had actually cost. Dad set the papers down on the white tablecloth. He looked at Marcus, then at me. And then my father did something I'd never seen in 34 years. He stood up, slowly, like a man lifting something heavier than his own body. He walked past Marcus without a word. Past the cake. Past the slideshow. He stopped in front of me. His voice broke on the first word and never recovered. How long? He asked. How long have you been carrying this? 3 years, I said. Longer, if you count the rest of it. He closed his eyes, and the sound that came out of that man, I'd never heard it before. Not in 67 years of living. It was the sound of someone realizing they punished the wrong child for the wrong reasons for the wrong amount of time. The party didn't end. It just stopped being a party. 50 people sat in a private dining room at Magnolia's with a gold anniversary cake nobody touched and a truth nobody could send back. Guests left the way. People leave a building after a fire alarm. Not running, but not lingering. Uncle Phil stopped at Marcus's chair on his way out, looked down at him, shook his head once, walked out without a word. Mrs. Calloway squeezed my shoulder as she passed. Your grandmother would be proud. Patsy Crane caught my eye from across the room and pressed her hand over her heart. Cousin Sophie was near the back. She didn't come over. Couldn't. Not without revealing her role. But she mouthed 2 words across the emptying room. You did it. Marcus sat alone at the table. Slideshow still cycling on the laptop behind him. Photos of birthdays, Christmases, barbecues on Palmetto Drive. He stared at the tablecloth like it owed him something. After 20 minutes, he stood and walked to Dad. Dad, I can explain. Don't. 1 word. Walter didn't raise his voice. Didn't even look up. But that single syllable landed like a door slamming shut on 38 years of unearned trust. Marcus left through the back. Same door as Jenna. The cake still said, 45 years of love. The irony sat there with the rest of us, uninvited and impossible to ignore. I drove Mom and Dad back to Palmetto Drive. Nobody spoke for the first 15 minutes. Mom sat in the back seat with her hand resting on the window, watching the Charleston streetlights slide by. Dad rode shotgun, his jaw working side to side, that thing he does when he's chewing on something too big to swallow. At a red light on King Street, Mom broke the silence. How did you afford it? I didn't pretend not to understand. I sold my car, stopped eating out, picked up overtime shifts, cut everything I could and some things I probably shouldn't have. For 3 years? For 3 years. The light turned green. I drove. Mom pressed her fingers against her eyes and made a sound that wasn't quite crying, more like something structural giving way inside her chest. I got them home, made tea in the same kitchen where I'd once been told my braces were extras, sat at the table where Marcus used to hold court, and Dad used to listen like every word was scripture. The house was quiet in a way it had never been before. Not peaceful, just stunned. I need to ask you something, I said. Did you know any of it? Mom shook her head. I knew something felt wrong. Marcus would get defensive when I asked about bills. Jenna started handling the mail. Things I'd normally see just stopped appearing. She stared at her tea. I told myself it was the chemo brain, that I was confused, that my son wouldn't. She couldn't finish. Dad hadn't spoken since the restaurant. He sat with his elbows on the table and his hands clasped in front of him like a man in a church pew who's just realized he's been praying to the wrong thing. He told me you didn't want to hear from me during treatment, Mom said. That calling you upset you, that you needed space. Her voice cracked. I believed him, Nora. I believed my own son over my own instinct. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, opened the voicemail, set it on the table between us. 47 seconds. Mom's voice, thin from chemo. Nora, sweetheart, I tried calling, but Marcus said you were busy. I wish you were here. I miss you, baby. Mom listened to her own voice like it belonged to a stranger. When it ended, she looked at me. He blocked your number? My own son blocked my daughter's number? He didn't block it. He just made sure you thought I didn't want to talk. Mom stood up, walked to the counter, picked up her phone with a steadiness that surprised me. This was not the woman who whispered, "Walter, please," at the restaurant. This was a woman who'd survived cancer and just discovered her son had been stealing from her while she was in the chemo chair. She called Marcus. He picked up on the second ring, probably hoping for forgiveness. What he got was something else. You told me my daughter didn't want to talk to me while I had cancer. You told me that while she was paying for every treatment keeping me alive. Her voice was low, controlled, and absolutely lethal. I want you to hear this clearly, Marcus. Do not call this house. Do not come to this house. You are not welcome here until you have answered for every lie and every dollar. She hung up, set the phone down. Her hands were shaking, but her voice hadn't been. Dad watched the whole thing. Then he finally spoke. I did this. Not a question, a verdict. I handed him the keys, the POA, the accounts, the deed. He asked and I gave because he was here, and you. He stopped, looked at me. And you were here too. I just couldn't see it because the help didn't look the way I expected it to. I let that sit. It deserved to sit. Monday morning, Rachel filed everything. A PS complaint for elder financial abuse. Referral to the Charleston County DA for criminal investigation, HELOC fraud, retirement fund diversion, potential forgery on the insurance application. Civil lawsuit on behalf of Walter and Eileen Brennan against Marcus T. Brennan and Jenna L. Brennan. Emergency motion to freeze the HELOC. By Tuesday, an APS investigator visited Palmetto Drive. By Wednesday, Marcus's employer, a regional insurance company, received notification of the fraud investigation. He was placed on administrative leave by lunch. Jenna's parents hired their own attorney Thursday morning. Jenna filed for divorce that afternoon. The Range Rover, the boat deposit, the Somerville land, all purchased with stolen money, all now subject to recovery proceedings. By Friday, Marcus was served with a temporary restraining order barring access to our parents' financial accounts. Rachel called me that evening with the update. The quitclaim deed is being challenged, the HELOC is frozen, and the DA's office is reviewing the insurance application for forgery charges. She paused. Your brother had a very bad week. Through the family grapevine, Uncle Phil told Dorothy. Dorothy told me. I learned that Marcus, alone in his apartment after Jenna left, called Mom's voicemail, left a message. 61 seconds. Mom, I'm sorry, I thought I deserved it. I thought I was the one who stayed. I thought staying meant something. He was crying on the recording. Eileen listened to it once. She didn't call back. 3 weeks later, on a Sunday evening, Dad called. His voice was different. Not the patriarch. Not the stone wall. Something stripped down. Unfamiliar. Almost tentative. Like a man learning to speak a language he should have learned decades ago. Nora, he said. Your mother and we'd like to come to Charlotte for Thanksgiving, if you'll have us. I held the phone against my chest for a long time before I answered. Thanksgiving in Charlotte that year was nothing like the ones I'd grown up with. No silver serving platters, no 20-person table, no patriarch at the head, deciding who mattered. It was a folding table from Target, 6 chairs, a turkey I almost burned, and the 4 people in this world who actually knew me. Liam helped me carry the bird out of the oven. He's a general contractor, builds houses for other people, fixes mine for free. We'd been together 8 months. He didn't try to fix my family. He just made sure I had a good chair to sit in while I fixed it myself. When I told him the whole story, start to finish, 3 hours on a Tuesday night, he didn't say, I'm sorry, or, that's terrible. He said, show me the binders. I knew right then. Mom and Dad drove up from Charleston. 3.5 hours. Dad white-knuckled the steering wheel the whole way. He hates the interstate. Always has. Mom brought a pecan pie wrapped in so much foil it looked like a small spacecraft. Dorothy arrived last. I'd arranged transport from Magnolia Gardens. She'd moved to a facility closer to Charlotte 2 weeks after the anniversary dinner. Her decision. I want to be near the granddaughter who actually gives a damn, she told the intake nurse, loud enough for the hallway to hear. Liam set her chair at the head of the table. She looked at it, looked at him, and said, I like this one, Nora. He's got manners and forearms. Dad walked in, looked around my apartment. Small, modest. The apartment of a woman who'd given away $151,200 over 3 years and furnished her life with what was left. He didn't say anything, just nodded and sat down. Mom hugged me for a full minute. I timed it because I'd spent 3 years counting things and couldn't stop. 60 seconds of her arms around me, her chin on my shoulder, her breath warm and steady. She smelled like the same perfume she'd worn my entire childhood. Something floral from the belt counter she'd been buying since 1994. We sat down. Liam carved the turkey. Badly, but with enthusiasm. Dorothy surveyed the table. Well, are we eating or are we crying? Because I'm too old for both at the same time? Everyone laughed. First real one in months. Over dinner, the updates came out naturally. Not as announcements, just as conversation between people trying to figure out what comes next. Rachel's civil case was proceeding. Court date in February. The quitclaim deed had been voided. The house was back in Walter and Eileen's names only. The HELOC was frozen and being unwound. Of the $94,000 diverted to Brennan Legacy Holdings, $67,000 had been recovered. The rest was tied up in the Somerville land, which was in foreclosure. Marcus's insurance license was suspended pending investigation. The DA was reviewing potential forgery charges on the life insurance application. Marcus was living in a rental apartment off Rivers Avenue. Alone. Working part-time at a building supply store, Jenna had taken the kids to her parents' house in Greenville. The Range Rover was returned. The boat deposit was gone. Dad mentioned the letter. Carefully. The way you mention something you're not sure you're allowed to bring up. He wrote to you. I know. Are you going to read it? I set my fork down. Maybe. When I'm ready. Not when he is. Dad nodded. Didn't push. Didn't argue. Didn't tell me what I should do or how I should feel. That right there, was the change. Not a grand gesture, not a speech. Just a man learning, at 67, that his daughter's boundaries weren't walls to climb over but lines to respect. Mom reached across the table and put her hand on mine. Whatever you decide, we're here. I squeezed her hand. I know. That's new. I like it. Dorothy pointed her fork at the turkey. This bird is dry, Nora. I know, Grandma. I love it anyway. After dinner, dishes done, everyone settled into the living room. Dorothy dozed in the armchair within 10 minutes. She'd deny it later, but Liam took a photo as evidence. Mom and Dad sat on the couch, Eileen's head on Walter's shoulder. Liam stepped onto the porch to call his sister. I went to my bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, took out my phone and opened the voicemail one last time. 47 seconds. Mom's voice, thin and tired. I wish you were here, sweetheart. I listened to the end. Then I deleted it. I didn't need it anymore. I had her voice in the next room, and this time, nothing stood between us. I walked to the wall above my desk. Took Dorothy's photograph from my jacket pocket. Grandpa Harold, 1978. Standing on the porch of 1427 Palmetto Drive. Young, proud, tool belt on. The house he worked double shifts for 6 years to buy. The house that was still standing. Still Brennan. I hung it on a nail Liam had put in the wall 3 days ago when I asked him to. He didn't ask what the photo was. He just measured, hammered, and stepped back. I touched the frame. We kept the house, Grandpa. The apartment was quiet. Not the silence of people who don't speak. The silence of people who don't need to. Mom's breathing from the couch. Dorothy's occasional snore. The kitchen faucet dripping the way it always does. The ordinary sounds of a life that's finally, after 34 years, my own. I'm not going to tell you to pay $151,000 to prove your love. That's not the lesson. The lesson is this. The people who say, family is everything, usually mean, your sacrifice is everything. And the people who call you boring? Sometimes boring is just another word for steady, for reliable, for the person still standing when the loud ones have run out of room. My grandmother always said, the numbers never lie, baby, people do. She was right, but here's what I'd add. The truth doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be patient. Marcus's letter is still in my kitchen drawer. I think about it sometimes, late at night, when the apartment is quiet and everyone's gone home. Part of me wants to read it. Part of me knows that some words, once you let them in, rearrange the furniture. Should I open it? I've gone back and forth 100 times. What would you do? That's my story. If you've ever been the quiet one, the steady one, the one who showed up when no one was watching, I hope you know, people like us don't lose. We just take longer to win. Thank you for staying with me all the way through. If this meant something to you, I'd love it if you'd like and subscribe. And if you want another story about someone who was underestimated, check the link in the description. I picked it just for you.